Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us from around the world. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this very special event, the official launch of What Space Got to Do with It 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth. I'm Shelley Brunswick, and I'm honored to be your host today as we embark on a journey of discovery, leadership, and transformation. Today, we're not just celebrating a book launch, we're igniting a movement for courage, growth, and leadership. This event is for everyone seeking to lead boldly, personally and professionally. Whether you're an emerging leader, a seasoned executive, or someone charting a new path, this session will inspire you with practical lessons and timeless wisdom from some of the world's most visionary changemakers. What Space Got to Do with It has been a passion project inspired by my 35-year journey in the space and aerospace industry. Over the years, I've had the privilege of interviewing more than 200 incredible thought leaders. Their stories of courage, resilience, and leadership from the foundation were the foundation of this book. And this book bridges the principles of space exploration with personal growth, offering practical lessons for navigating uncertainty, empowering opportunities, and leading with purpose. The lessons you'll hear today aren't just abstract ideas, they're real, actionable insights from individuals who've embraced bold leadership, overcome obstacles, and achieved extraordinary success. Our goal is that you'll walk away with the inspiration and tools to fuel your transformation. This event is your launch pad for your journey. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce to you our remarkable change makers featured in the book. Each of them represents a unique perspective on courage, growth, and leadership. Their insights will challenge, inspire, and empower you to lead boldly in your own life. First, I'd like to start by introducing our amazing speakers today. I'm going to start with Andrea Prazakova. She's a human-centered AI expert, investor, and public speaker dedicated to advancing responsible AI development and fostering human-machine collaboration. Her leadership and advocacy for ethical AI have made her a sought-after voice in the global technology landscape. Welcome, Andrea. We'd love to hear a little bit more about your introduction.
Wow, Shelley, this is a really great introduction. Allow me to enhance it a little bit with some additional details, and most importantly, end up with the fact why I got interested into space. So maybe some of the listeners can guess from my surname that I'm from Eastern Europe. So if you did, you are right. The ova indicates that I'm a female version of a male Czech, because in Czech Republic you have always the ova in the end. So I'm from Czech Republic. I have two incredible boys who were born both in South Africa. I'm a chef. I'm a humanitarian, and I lived in many countries in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, and Middle East. And yes, there are still some continents left out for me to discover, but at the young age of 51, there is still half 50 years to go to discover the other places. So you might ask yourself, how did I end up in space, and how did I end up in this incredible book with Shelley published? So I would steal the name of the Shelley's book and say, God, what's the space got to do with me, right? Because it's so catchy. So a couple of years back, I used to work for Mastercard until August, and a couple of years back, Mastercard ran a project with NYU, which ideated about opportunities of payments in space and space tourism. And I was so fascinated by it and by the work the team did that I decided to go straight into it with my head and my feet. I did a course at MIT for New Space Economy, and I started a podcast called Space Uncensored, where I interview and focus on interviewing women which work in the space sector. And obviously, not only to elevate their voices, but to motivate other girls and women to join the powerful movement and to get interested into the sector. As mentioned, I left corporate world after 32 years this August, and I started my own business, which is called Brain Gym. I'm a massive health freak, so I feel that, the same way you exercise your muscles, you have to exercise your brain and constantly learn new things. So our vision is to empower C-suite executive with knowledge about artificial intelligence, space tech, blockchain, and Web3. But we combine it with longevity because obviously your brain is not only one part of your body. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Shelley, for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak about the chapter you wrote.
Well, thank you, Andrea. We're so excited you're here. Next, I'd like to introduce Arpit Chaturvedi. He's a dynamic leader in public policy and international political economy, known for his innovative approaches to sustainable development and cross-sector collaboration. As co-founder and CEO of Global Policy Insights, he empowers future leaders and advances global policy solutions. Arpit, we're so excited to have you on us. Please share a little bit more about your introduction.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sherry. So, I think my primary interest in the space sector came from no other than Shelley here. And we set up this fellowship program called the Global Policy Diplomacy and Sustainability Fellowship with the idea to mentor a younger generation of folks across the cross section of public policy, diplomacy, and sustainability. Because the idea was that it is only with the knowledge of these three sectors or these three disciplines that you can get anything done in the real world. And we had a lot of specialists, but we wanted people to develop a more rounded understanding of things. And during that point of time, I got introduced to Shelley through another friend of mine, Jonathan Cummings. And Shelley was this, really, really inspiring figure in the space industry. And I had a discussion with Shelley to figure out whether these policy, diplomacy, and sustainability experts can learn anything about the space industry and can benefit from it. And I was, quite mind blown to understand that a lot of things that we are doing is already falling in that space. And a lot of things that we can be doing as policy experts has to do with the expansion of the space industry. So our fellowship has been running for about 4 years. We have had more than 400 mentors, including diplomats, sometimes former heads of states, a lot of folks from international organizations and CEOs. And every year now, we have one person who's focused on learning about space and applying those lessons to public policy, diplomacy, and sustainability. Besides that, I also, I'm an advisor for an international political risk advisory firm called Teneo, and I advise businesses on political risk in South Asia, and run a consulting firm called Insights International that does similar advisory to businesses based in India. So, thanks, Shelley.
Well, thank you, Arpit. I know our audience is going to look forward to diving more into G-Pods and everything else and your mentors. So with that, thank you again. And now I'd like to pivot over to Desmond Wisanuri, who is the visionary founder and CEO of Space-Based Solutions, where he spearheads initiatives at the intersection of space technology and community development. He's also a program coordinator at the North American Regional Office of Astronomy for Development and Associated Universities. Welcome, Desmond. We're so thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Shelley, for having me, and I'm great to be here. So the question is, how did I get into space, right? It all started when during my undergrads in electrical and computer engineering, where I specialized in telecommunications back in Cameroon. So Cameroon has no stage in space. And with that said, there is some challenges that we couldn't really go to the space stage, right? So I realized that based on the challenges that terrestrial communication has, right, like point-to-point communications and all that, space comes itself to have these advanced ways of doing things in terms of satellite communication and reaching out to remote areas. So okay, I have to take myself out of that area and pursue another degree in space science. And I went to Nigeria to do that. So fast forwarding, I was opportune to leave Nigeria and come to the US after my master's degree, and then I got another degree in management. And yeah, but now why in nonprofit, right? Why did I create space-based solutions? It was all about giving back and trying to create awareness about the importance and prospects in the space industry to motivate the other young Africans and young people in my community about the importance of space. So it goes in line with the job I presently have now, as Shelley rightly said, which is all about, creating awareness and connecting space to the North American region to undeserved populations. Yeah. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you, Desmond. And I know everybody's looking forward to hearing about your journey from Cameroon to Nigeria to the United States.
Yeah.
Next, I'd like to introduce Linda Pereira. She is a globally recognized expert in strategic communication and advocacy, currently serving as the G100 Global Chair for Communications and Advocacy. Her career spans diplomacy, corporate leadership, and event management, where she's known for elevating voices and creating lasting impacts. Welcome, Linda. We're so excited to hear a little bit more about your intro.
What a lovely intro. Isn't it nice? I feel quite vain now after all that. So thank you so much for having me here among all these wonderful people. I feel so tiny, but never mind. I have this amazing nickname, which I'm very proud of, which is the Message Architect. And what I have been doing most of my life before I even knew it, was designing the communication structure for people who want to spread their message or a view or a new idea or a new philosophy or want to get on a stage, etc. I work in variety of areas. So not only do I work with leaders who are already at the top of their game and politicians, which is not my favorite part, I have to be honest. And I also work with cities, with towns, with countries. For example, the last 3 years, I've been working with Saudi Arabia, who are changing their narrative as a people, the laws, the way the country is established, their structure, etc. So I'm very proud of that because I feel I'm doing something that in fact impacts change and contributes to developing people and the world. I was born in a very poor background, so it has given me this perspective that the only way is up. So I'm extremely positive in everything that I do, and I always look at the positive side of everything. Today, I am a CNN commentator on the European royal families and protocol. I work in corporate diplomacy when countries are entering new markets because my area is literally creating connections between the local communities and the businesses coming in to make sure that they respect where they are going and the philosophies and the culture of where they are going. So I'm connecting cultures in that way. And I'm also a university professor, contributing to educating the next generations, not only in communication, but also in international relations and cross-cultural communication. So I think I'll stop there for now, but thank you very much for including me in this great group.
Well, thank you, Linda. And I know everybody's excited to hear more about CNN and the Royals and your background because you didn't even talk about Parliament yet. So just a teaser for your story. Last but certainly not least, I want to introduce Peter Trubinsky. He's an expert in macroeconomic policy, digital transformation, and cybersecurity with over 15 years of experience advising global organizations such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. His work focuses on fostering innovation and infrastructure investment to address complex global challenges, including post-war recovery and digital currency strategies. Welcome, Peter. We're excited to hear a little bit more about your introduction.
Hi, Shelley, and hello, good morning and good evening, everyone. And it is a real honor to be here with you for this special occasion as we celebrate the launch of your book. I'm also deeply humbled to be featured in its pages and to share this moment with all of you. I am a lawyer and engineer by training and by profession, a financial sector and macroeconomic analyst, as well as a manager in the technology sector. By foremost, I'm a happy husband and a father of two wonderful boys. And my journey, as chronicled in this book, has been anything but conventional. I grew up in Poland during a time of profound political change, and as it happens in challenging conditions, I decided to develop in different directions that maybe helped me a little bit in being able to understand different sectors, including the private sector and the public sector of the economy. And I think that one universal truth that I learned during my life is that progress happens when we are really willing to take risk, and we are really willing to lead in our private life, to lead in our public appearances, and when we make ourselves visible, proactive, and unafraid to embrace the change and to embrace the unknown. So I think today I would like to dive deeper into these themes. I look forward to an engaging conversation with you, Shelley, with other amazing people that are here, and more importantly, I'm really excited to hear your questions and insights as we're going to be discussing the broader lessons about adaptability, ambition, and leadership. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter, for joining us. Well, as you can tell, we have an all-star panel today to talk about these amazing thoughts and insights and share their stories. So I'm going to jump into the different chapters and then tie each of these speakers into their chapter. So we're going to start with chapter 5, which is orbiting connections, the significance of relationships. This explores the vital role that connections play in shaping our success. Just as satellites orbit the Earth in synchronized harmony, our personal and professional networks help us navigate challenges and seize new opportunities. Relationships are more than just connections, they're the catalyst for growth, collaboration, and transformation. This chapter highlights how the relationships we build and nurture can become one of our most valuable assets, propelling us to new heights. One of the extraordinary leaders featured in this chapter is Andrea. Her story is a testament to the power of authentic connections and how they can open doors to extraordinary opportunities. Today, she'll share her personal journey. Andrea, again, we're so honored to have you with us. Please share a little bit about your story and your journey on how you got to where you are today.
Shelley, I think we can just disconnect everybody else because I could then talk for about 90 minutes. And I am sure that so does Linda, Piotr, and Arpit and Desmond, because the stories of all the people in the books are so amazing that it would deserve their own webinars. But I really reflected on the question you asked about key relationships, and I was thinking maybe to share something which is not necessarily featured in the book, and say what those some of the key thing which changed the trajectory for me as a leader. And in the intro, I mentioned that I had the privilege and the opportunity to live in so many different places around the world, right? And for somebody coming, and maybe Piotr can relate to me, we grew up very much in an environment which was don't trust anybody and look for everything, through a very different spectacles. And I think one of the big changes for me was in 1992, 1993, very early in my career, which started to shape differently how I look at these things. And I worked for Raiffeisen Landesbank Oberösterreich, which is a big European bank coming from Austria in a very small city, or actually village. And there were only 4 people. And I think that one of the things which really resonated with me was that it was like a living community, which by coincidence work in banking, which today is very rare, because if you go and work in a corporate environment, it's all about KPIs and did you upgrade yourself? Did you do this? And, people really lose these connections. And I think I was so lucky that my career started in an environment which was with these, 4 or 5 people who knew their children, they knew their medical records, they knew their husbands and wife and all the neighbors. So the priority in the relationships were the people. And I think that that's something which really is super important. And, I even at that time, which is today almost impossible, the assessment of a loan and the willingness, ability to repay was because I knew you. I would know Shelley and I would assess, where is she and would she be willing to pay back? And, often I applied with my teams until today, that I first try to understand the humans behind it, because everybody is slightly different. And I often got criticized in my jobs that, especially as higher you go up, people look at you and say, you should be more serious. You should build more distance between you and your teams. They will not respect you if you have it. And I think that's something which was a great lesson. And I always stick to it, is that be open with your teams, right? Be vulnerable, share your ups and downs, because maybe, Desmond or Arpit or Linda or Piotr come to the office and something happened into their private world, and then they react differently in the office. But if they are not open enough to speak to you about things, and you don't have this relationship which you build, then it's really hard. And I think you also asked, what were some of the things which are the steps, which nurture the relationships, right? And how it applied on. And I would like to share, one thing which I thought when we were preparing for the webinar, and it was in 2015, and that was another really breaking moment. I had the absolute privilege to join a course at Harvard, which sole purpose was to find your true leadership, authentic leadership. And it was led by Professor Bill George, who designed it around a book which is called Finding Your True North. And we were allocated into teams of 5. And I think this is quite a practical example. And so that they ensure diversity, different backgrounds. And one of the exercises which really truly opened my eyes was a so-called map called Path to Your True Life, right? And it was from your birth, a very early age, to remember all the different experiences. And I actually digged up the book for today. So I still have the book. I'm not sure you can see it. That's my path. You can see many happy faces, many unhappy faces. But what it did, and nobody ever took me on this journey before, to say all these different examples which happen in your life somehow reflect what kind of leader you are and what relationships you're building. And I felt that, and I didn't trust it in the beginning. And then I thought, let's go with it. Like the design thinkers say, trust the process. And I trust the process. And it was truly amazing, because you start to realize that you cannot be a great leader and you cannot build deep relationship if you don't understand yourself. And all these moments which maybe happen with a relationship with your family, with your friends, some happy moments, some dramatic moments, and that really, really, really helped me a lot. So I think one of my advices out of this would be that in order to build better relationships and to be a better leader, because we never can be perfect, right? It's impossible. Try this kind of exercise of putting your life map in front of you and reflect which moments, maybe something happened when you were 9 years old or 15 years old or 20 or 25 or 30, which then are mirrored in the way how you operate. So really be vulnerable, be open and learn every single day. And I think my last advice in this, what I learned across and even from this book, just, I don't want to sound it arrogant, but don't listen to others, right? Listen to your gut. It's so important. And then I think across my journey, I was very privileged, very lucky. And on this one page in the book, which was the summary, I wrote, I'm lucky, I'm happy, I never give up, and I look forward, I'm ready for constant change. And I think that, in your leadership journey, no matter how old you are, if you map these life lessons, it's always super powerful. So I hope, the audience will be curious and obviously get your book, Shelley, and, will read all the chapters inside.
Well, thank you, Andrea. And that's good. So another great reference for people to follow, to map out their journey. Now, you've highlighted profound roles of authentic relationships in the book. What steps did you take to build and nurture these relationships? And what lessons can others apply to their own journey to build and, more importantly, nurture relationships?
I think I mentioned a little bit, I think that one of the key, I wouldn't say tricks, is really to be vulnerable, to ask for help. I think it's really important. If you want to nurture relationship, where you want the support is to be able to talk about your weaknesses and about your strength, let your guard down and be there when the people really need you. I think and for your teams, I think, because the relationships are with the people above you, with the people next to you, and with the people who work for you, right? And that kind of, I was always very close to my teams. I was never the best at managing up, but I was always really great managing with my teams. And I think in the book we shared the story where, I created competitions when I used to work as a branch teller. When I was a director of the bank in Slovakia, if they, met their targets, I would go and work there for a day so that they, show up, right? Super critical. Show up, show them that you mean it, show them that you care, and do it in even small steps. I think that really work for me. But it's the same in your day-to-day relationship, the same way how you interact with your partner, your wife, your husband, your children. Same way applied to what you do at work. But definitely vulnerability is key. Showing up for people, standing up for them, taking protecting them where they need protection, if you are the one which is more senior, because that all pays off, because that builds the trust. But the world is not hunky-dory, and you need to have that kind of net where you can fall on, and they needed the same. So I think that's something which really works for me.
Well, thank you, Andrea, for sharing such a powerful insights about the role of authentic relationships in shaping success. Your reflections on the importance of nurturing genuine connections and being intentional with building relationships offers invaluable lessons for all of us. Now, building on these themes shared by Andrea, we now turn to Arpit, who also offers a compelling perspective on the power of relationships. Our pit story continues the exploration of Chapter 5, Orbiting Connections, the Significance of Relationships, showing how cross sector collaboration and bridge building across diverse perspectives can drive transformation and create lasting impact. Arpit, we're honored to have you share your journey with us. We look forward to hearing more.
Thank you, Shelley. Absolutely honored to be here and to be part of this book. I actually want to build on something that Andrea said, and she mentioned it. I'm going to emphasize it a lot, and that is that the usual advice that people get from the environment, a lot of times it's wrong. So it's not a great idea to always listen to all of the advice that's there in the environment, because I remember after my first MBA degree in India, I was in a consulting firm. I was in a consulting job. That was my first job, like a first real corporate job. And at that point of time, the general advice was that no, you don't do the work that you really, really like. It's because you're doing something that's inherently not very interesting, you're getting paid so much. And also, you don't have to like the people you're working with. And that used to be the usual advice on the street. And I thought to myself that I don't like both of these things. I want to work with people who I really, really like, and I also want to do work that really inspires me. And I don't know how it works. People don't seem to agree with that, but or at least in the conventional corporate world, there was no agreement around that. And I was like, okay, I'm still going to give it a try. And uh, after working for about 1.5 years, I took a leap of faith, and I thought that I'm going to plunge into entrepreneurship. Uh, and I almost did that, but at that point of time, I met a member of parliament, and leveraging relationships, etc. I was really inspired by the work that she was doing, and jumped into assisting her as her legislative assistant. Eventually, became her chief of staff, and then one thing led to another, and I went for my second master's at Cornell. And even there, the day I was landing in the United States. I remember that another friend of mine, Jonathan, who eventually connected me to Shelley, uh, invited me to a conference that was happening at the UN headquarters and then at the World Bank headquarters. And this was a young leader sort of a conference. And I was on call with my dad, and I told him that I've been invited to this conference, and I'm not sure if that's going to give me anything, but I don't know what to do. So my dad was like, "You must definitely go to that conference." And I took his advice, went there, met a lot of amazing folks, including Jonathan, then John Dixon, who these folks really became pillars of my career later on. And I remember that after graduating from Cornell, after having taught at the San Francisco State University, I was again thinking that, okay, this is my time where I can, jump into an entrepreneurial journey, but in the public policy field. These were the two folks who sat down with me, and we brainstormed ideas around what we can do to uh, you know uh, do something that's meaningful in the public policy space, but it's also not a regular job, because that ship had sailed for me long back. And I thought that, okay, I want to do something related to education. And by the time we were brainstorming on all of these things, COVID hit us. And amidst that adversity, we saw an opportunity that this was a time where a lot of people wanted to obtain international education and were not able to travel, etc. So we thought that, okay, why don't we set up this online fellowship program where we could bring in the really, really, accomplished experts across fields and see, because I believe that even for experts, that was even for really accomplished folks, that was a time where everyone was baffled and befuddled as to where the world is going in COVID. And we thought that, okay, this is a good opportunity to get everyone together and to think together as to how the world needs to shape going in the future. And we launched this global policy, diplomacy, and sustainability program, where Shelley, I think from the first cohort onwards, became a mentor. And this was really about reaching out to people. And I feel that authentic connections are based on two things. One is, that irrational affinity to a person. I meet you, you meet me, and we are feeling like, we already uh, like the vibe of the other person. And the other thing is the things that you're trying to do, if they are similar. So if the big end goals that you're pursuing, and you could be pursuing those from many different directions. I was pursuing it from the direction of public policy. Shelley was pursuing it from the direction of space. And the idea eventually was that we want to bring a lot of people from the global south, from developing countries, into the fold of what is new, what is cutting edge, and what is relevant for the future. And that's where I think Shelley and I, we found some bit of synchronicity, and there started the journey of the Global Policy, Diplomacy, and Sustainability Fellowship, where not only do we, have these very academic workshops on research design and on, econometrics, etc., etc., but also we give people exposure to leaders like Shelley, or leaders like, uh, Ambassador Armbruster, who Shelley has also interacted with, who served in the Marshall Islands, been a US ambassador, etc., to bring in different perspectives, different mental models, and these are invaluable for people. I've seen folks who, really joined our fellowship program on a scholarship, and then eventually went on to, study about space, or study about diplomacy, or study about sustainability in one of the top institutions, all of the Ivy Leagues, etc., in the world, and now are building very exciting careers around it. And just wrapping up over there, Shelley, I also found one thing, and that's probably also going to fall a little bit into Desmond's basket of things, that a lot of times, it's about trying new things and, not holding yourself back. I remember that with another fellow of GPods, we started writing about space policy in India. And suddenly, one fine day, after having been published in 4 or 5 publications, one fine day I get up and I find my name listed in, the top 200 thinkers in the space sector, or emerging thinkers in the space sector. And I was like, I've just written 5 articles, and I was inspired by Shelley's lecture. I looked at what's happening in the Indian Parliament, and just because I've put my views out there, I was recognized because in India, I realized that I was probably one of the three people who were writing anything about space. So sometimes just putting your ideas out there, if they're making sense, that does give you the recognition and put you on another level and make you part of the mainstream conversation. I'm going to stop there. Thanks, Shelley, for this amazing book.
Well, awesome, Arpit. I love that. Put your ideas out there. That's what we did with this book and what everybody's doing today. So, Arpit, what lessons can leaders take from your experience to foster more meaningful cross-sector connections?
So, Shelley, a lot of times people think when they are fostering cross-sector connections that, if I'm reaching out to somebody who has nothing to do with the field that I'm in, we might have nothing in common at all. And I believe, with my experience and with my interactions, that eventually at some subliminal level, uh, we're all or at least people who get a certain degree of exposure and responsibility in the world, we're all aiming for the same or similar things for humanity as a collective. And when you meet people, even when they are from different domains, but if they've been through enough experiences, you kind of get those cues. They are unsaid cues, but you already know that, okay, this person is thinking about the same concerns or thinking in similar patterns as I am thinking or as somebody else is thinking. And you very quickly are able to connect with them, and through different directions you're able to find common cause. So I think it's something that's difficult to put in words. It's almost like magic, but it does happen.
So it's not only a science, but it's also an art. That's what I always say.
Absolutely.
Arpit knows that I was a legislative liaison for the U.S. Air Force working on Capitol Hill, and it's the art of the possible when you work with legislation and policy. And Arpit will dive more into policy in a future talk. But what I'd
Sure.
like to do is for our other panelists, I want to first of all thank Andrea and Arpit for sharing powerful stories about building relationships. But now I'd love to open it up to our other panelists to get, what advice would you offer to those seeking to build impactful connections, especially for the next generation of leaders? So what I'd like to do is with our rising space leader, Desmond, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of building connections and how that helps this rising generation of global leaders.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea and Api, for that elaboration. And yeah, Shelley, so to be very honest, it's all about trust because for you to be able to build a lasting relationship with someone, you have to first build trust, right? And trust is by trusting what you do, like being authentic with what you do and bringing yourself out there because it's always about the first step, right? When you interact with someone, that person believes in you, right? That person believes in your talent, that person believes in your skills. So, in as much as you want to create that connection with someone, it takes a process for you to build trust and ensure that that trust is being built. Because with trust, you have that openness, right? That person will open to you, that person will be ready to help you. The second thing is, which I will always tell people, it's be true to yourself, right? Let the person know exactly what you want. Make it very clear and articulate what you need to whoever you're speaking with. Like with you, Shelley, I mean, it took a while for me to connect with you. So you have to ensure that you tell the person exactly what you want, where you're coming from, and then be true to yourself. Because it's when you're true to yourself, the other person will know exactly what you want and where to help you in. So there are two things for me. It's building trust and then ensuring that you have an open mindset. Yeah.
Fantastic, Desmond. I'd love to pivot to Peter because I was just watching a thing where they say trust is the currency of international diplomacy. And Peter, with your background, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how do you see the role of building relationships evolving in future leadership, especially for the next generation of leaders.
Yes, thank you so much, Shelley, and thank you to other panelists for sharing their stories. You mentioned trust, and I come from a country that when I was born, it was under communism. So trust was actually the scarce good. And not only people did not trust each other, they actually were essentially punished for trusting, for building anything but trust to the state and trust to the Communist Party. And I think that to have this kind of trust, you have to understand what trust really is, right? And trust essentially is allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to share with others everything that you have, and your aspirations, your plans, your views, and allowing this message to come across, because it's going to be heard. And since we are discussing the book about space and space exploration, everything in space is actually based on trust. So if we do not trust in certain ideas that we have, we cannot measure them. We cannot make them happen. So I think it is extremely important that we build relations in our personal and professional life based on this trust, and we actually put trust at the top of our principles that can guide us. So to next generation leaders, I would say, well, you have to trust. You have to trust yourself first. You have to trust with whatever you stand for. You have to have set of principles, but also you have to trust people. And those two trusts, trust in your journey, trust in yourself, your capacity, abilities, and trust in others, is the recipe for success. It is the recipe to stand out, to be a leader, and to also lead others. There is no leadership without trust, and there is no ability to achieve anything if you don't trust yourself, nor if you don't trust other people. So that would be my very short answer to your very good question, Shelley.
Excellent. And I'd love to wrap it up with Linda, who's a global expert as well. I want to hear about what your thoughts are on how we can help the next generation understand the importance of building and nurturing those relationships.
That's interesting, because I'm always saying that everything I have and everything I am is based on the connections and the network that I created throughout my life. I actually teach strategic networking, so this is a great topic for me. So I'll keep it short because I can go on for days about this topic. So relationships, connections, networking are all, it's a mutually beneficial process. It has to be a process of give and take. And eventually that will result in trust. Trust is not something you immediately have. It has to be earned. And you have to keep proving it daily. And I actually think that is a good thing. I think that the younger generations are very much based on connections through technology. I teach at university, so I know that two young people will be in the same room, WhatsApping each other instead of conversing. And we are from generations that were based on conversing. My daughter sends me a WhatsApp from her bedroom asking me what's for dinner. My answer is usually, let's go to hospital, you've broken your legs. So it's really important that we actively demonstrate to young people the importance of face-to-face, live and conversational connections, because it is completely different to meet Desmond and have a conversation with him and create a connection, even though it's a vulnerable connection at first, and then build on it. And I've never heard of an investor investing $500,000, $1 million on a Zoom call. It doesn't work. And so one of the things that I believe is the greatest platform for connections is what we were all talking about: congresses, conference, attending international meetings where you have knowledge transfer, where you have a face-to-face, where you have serendipity, where you meet someone having coffee that you would not have met in any other way because you're all wearing the same badge, and it's immediately a connector. So this is why I work in this world, because I believe that it is the face-to-face connection that destroys barriers of ignorance between races, between people, between cultures. It is looking someone in the eye that will create an understanding of who the other is. So space is all about that as well. We always have the films of the bad aliens. Who said they were bad? Why can't they be good? So I believe that we have to meet people to understand them and to bring down those barriers which are at the moment growing between us in the world.
I think that's great. I do want to highlight that E.T. was a good alien. So, we go through phases in movies, bad aliens, good aliens. So, I've loved this. We could do a whole master class on building relationships and networks. We'll save that because that's what Linda does in her business. But what I'd like to do now is let's pivot to chapter 6, which is beyond self-doubt. Never disqualify yourself from something you haven't been offered. And for those of you who are wondering why that title, it relates to my journey and part of my story, and you'll have to check that out in the book. I'm going to keep that a little secret. But this chapter delves into the power of self-belief and the courage it takes to overcome self-doubt. Often we exclude ourselves from opportunities before we're even considered, but this chapter challenges that mindset. It encourages us to recognize our worth and step forward, even when the path feels uncertain. Desmond's journey is a testament to the power of self-belief and perseverance. His story illustrates the power of not disqualifying yourself from opportunities. And today, Desmond is going to share his inspiring journey and offer insights from it. So, Desmond, again, we're so excited to hear more about your journey from Cameroon to Nigeria to Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shelley, and I'm deeply honored to be in this book. So yeah, one key word that I usually have in mind is, which I learned throughout the years, is that we create our own destiny. Why am I saying so? Because I'm coming from a very little town, a country known as Cameroon, and from a very little tiny village. But what happened? My country has no stage in space. That is the first thing. We don't have any spacefaring agency, but we shall have that soon, I promise you. So in most African countries, there is this myth, right, that there is this belief that your destiny is already being defined from your time of birth, right? What am I trying to say? Like based on your culture, your destiny is already defined, irrespective of what you're trying to do, irrespective of the circumstances, it's already fixed. But I had to, build this self-confidence to take myself out of that kind of belief. And the first thing I did was I had to build this defensive mechanism within myself by doing what I had to ignore all the discouraging statements coming from my friends, my families, that, hey, you can't be able to walk into the space industry because first things first, Cameroon has no stage in the space sector. Secondly, even if you get a degree in space, what are you going to do with it? Which job are you going to have? Do you want to go to space? There were so many questions coming. And to be honest with you, at the time, there was a lot of doubt in my mind. But what did I do at the time? I built this confidence within myself. And then the second thing I did was to have a global mindset, right? I had to open myself. I had to put myself out there. And with that said, after my undergraduate in electrical and computer engineering dating 2014, I realized that I had to, leave Cameroon and pursue a degree in the space industry. And I was opportune to go to Nigeria, where there is a Center for Space Science and Technology. It's part of UNOSA, Outer Space Affairs Centers in Developing Countries, where I pursued a master's in space science and technology, and I specialized in satellite communication. And why satellite communication? Because my undergraduate, I specialized in electronics and telecommunications. And with telecommunications, it has its own challenges, like point-to-point communication, right? And coming from Africa, where we have hilly areas and remote areas, telecommunication won't really, offer the connectivity. So I had this interest in space, which will come and mitigate those challenges. So I left Cameroon and went to Nigeria to pursue this master's degree. So fast forwarding, after my master's degree was the time for me to get a job. What am I going to do? So the questions that was asked by families and friends, what are you going to do with this degree, what I mean, Africa itself at the time, we're still a developing nation and we don't really have the budget to really get into the space sector. So what are you going to do? All those questions started coming back. So the next thing I could do was to go back to Cameroon, right, and just pursue a job in electrical engineering in my background. But what did I do? I had to be perseverance. I had to stay back and exercise perseverance and trust in the system. Because I very much accepted what Andrew said, trusting the system. So I had to trust the system and believe in myself and accept the environment that I am in. So I, put myself out there and I got a job. It was a temporary job to prove myself. So one other key thing is you have to prove yourself. You have to be authentic to yourself so that people will see your competence, because it's with that that trust comes in, right? As Trabitsky also said, you have to be competent with yourself so that people will believe in what you can do. And with that, trust will come in. So whatever you're saying and whatever you're looking for to do, the other counterpart will be able to help you. So I had to prove myself by doing what? By doing a job without pay for over a year in Nigeria. And it was very challenging at the time, because while in Nigeria, I was alone. There was no family member, no friends. I knew no one there. I just went there on my own. And the thing back home is always to pursue a degree, right? To follow your degree, of course, you want to go to the US, you want to go to the UK, you want to go to Europe. But I went to Nigeria and it's a neighboring country. So it was kind of a doubt to me at the time. But what did I look? I didn't look at the environment. I looked at the degree. I looked at, the career that I'm going to pursue. I didn't look at the environment. So let your environment shouldn't define who you're going to be in future, right? Look into your plans and look into what you're going to achieve and focus on that. Then you will be able to, have that mindset, because it's all about building your mindset as well in your pursuits. So further to that, I worked over a year without pay. And in the second year, what happened? They said, oh, we're going to integrate you. So this was in one of the UN facilities in Nigeria, right? It was an institute of capacity building where they teach spatial information science and remote sensing. So they say, okay, we're going to recruit you as an auxiliary staff. And do you know what the pay was? 65,000 Naira, and that is $40 a month. So I worked for over $40. I worked for over a year just earning $40. And it was so, I don't know what to say, it was just crazy to me. But what happened? I didn't look at what I'm earning at the time. I looked at my long-term plan. I looked at my long-term goal. What am I going to achieve in the future? So that is what I focused on. So with that said, I had to, keep proving myself, right? Proving myself until I got integrated as a professional staff. And I was given a position as a lecturer, and I was managing the consultancy unit. But it wasn't like I was comfortable at the time, because I knew that there was still much I could do. So I had to look at it as a fertile ground, right, based on the challenges. So irrespective of the challenges that you see around you, you have to see the opportunities with the challenges. Because in as much as Cameroon has no space in stage, I saw it as a fertile ground for me to go in and, introduce that. So fast forwarding, I had this open mindset. I tried as much as I could do to, put myself out there. And I went to LinkedIn. I tried to connect and build relationship with top leaders. And among other great leaders that I met Shelley. And going back to what we spoke about relationship, I had to, prove myself, like my authenticity, right? What I'm able to do, because it's with there that trust will come in. And I was opportunity to be one of the teachers, International Teachers Legends for Space Foundation, where Shelley was the CEO there at the time. So that really gave me this open mindset, right, to connect with people. So one thing I always tell people is that have that open mindset, connect with people from different cultures, connect with people from different backgrounds. Don't just feel that you are within a closed wall or within yourself. Connect with people and hear their own stories, because it's with their own stories that will encourage you, right? It's with their own stories that is going to make it more easy for you to penetrate through this, global world with advanced technology and all that. Like AI, I heard some of you are working into AI. That is a good ground to connect with. So lastly, what I will say is after that, I realized that I had to do more, right? And I had this opportunity based on the relationship that I created. So, funny enough, is with knowing Shelley that I'm here. It's because of Shelley that I'm in the United States. Because you can just build one relationship, but you don't know the impacts that it will do for you. It's all a network that you will not even see. Because it's based on that she spoke to other people, and I got this opportunity because I brought myself out there. I attended webinars, I attended conferences, to showcase what I can do. And with that said, I came to the US and pursued on a master's degree in management. And it has just been a very good storyline for me, because coming all the way from Cameroon, from a very little town to the US, having a master's degree, having a better job than what I had. So the key word I would tell people is always good to be perseverance. It's always good to have an open mindset, and it's always good to believe in the process, trust the system, have built this defensive mechanism in you. Do not let your environment impact, your pursuits in life. Because if you let people, Angry rightly said, right, it's not everything that you get from people. Because if I listen to the advices from back home, like, hey, what is space? Nobody does anything in space. Trust me, I would have still been in Cameroon doing something that I thought would have been a better choice for me. So I came all the way here, and it has just been so good. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Desmond, for sharing that. How do you see the lesson in your chapter about never disqualifying yourself from something you haven't been offered playing a role in the future of leadership, especially for the next generation of leaders like yourself?
Yeah. What I will say is that first, it's all about the mindset, right? Build a very great mindset, build an open mindset, and never let people tell you that you can't. Never believe in the word no, that people will like try to discourage you, and never let your environment disqualify your pursuit in life. Then secondly, make sure that you create good relationship, connect with people, connect with mentors, right? Have people that has gone through all those phases, have people that can encourage you, have people that can guide you in the process, because it's all about a community building, right? Have people that have this common mindset with you, that will be able to encourage you, able to guide you in the things that you do. Then lastly, I will always say that, because personally, in as much as you connect with people, in as much as you build relationship, you keep learning, right? You keep improving your career by, putting yourself out there, keep learning and learning and learning, because the world is fast growing, right? AI, space itself, these are the two frontiers, AI and space. It's fastly growing. So you need to always, be at the top of the game, because it's with that you won't, be faded away. Yeah.
Fantastic. What I'd love to do is RPIT, with your background with GPONs and young people and the fellows, how do you see the role of self-belief and courage evolving in the future of leadership?
A lot, actually, Shelley, because mean, I think I'm gonna repeat a lot of what Desmond already has covered, but I think it all starts from self belief and leadership. And one might feel at some point in time that self belief could be absolutely irrational and based on nothing that you really are at this point of time. So, for example, when when I started, writing about a lot of stuff, I thought that, okay, who am I to comment on this, or who am I to, put myself out there and talk about this particular thing? Uh, and even at that point in time, I thought that, at some point in time, I want to be a person who's invited, let's say, to a university of global repute to deliver a lecture. But at that point in time, I was like, I haven't done, and this is when I was in my 20s. I used to think that that's not something that I've ever done in my life. And I remember, however, that I developed this ability a lot of times to just sign myself up for things and going there a lot of times, even being on stage and speaking and initially even fumbling my way around and messing it up. But over time, what happens is that self belief is not, you realize that that self belief, even though initially aspirational and arbitrary, is based on some hidden competencies or some hidden aspect of you that you haven't just nurtured at that point of time. And you walk and you fall, but at some point in time you do find your balance. If I were to give examples of other fellows, I know that there were fellows in the program who were extremely averse to any sort of technical analysis of public policy. Or I was a person who was extremely scared of anything mathematical. And now you know just by putting myself out there, I do find every now and then, now I work with a game theorist, Professor Kaushik Basu, who was the chief economist at the World Bank. And I work on papers related to game theory, etc., stuff that I never thought that I would be able to do, because I was one of those folks in India who was struggling with their mathematics exams all the time. And now I kind of get things intuitively. And I've seen it with a lot of our fellows who thought that, especially during COVID, that their careers have hit a wall that they would never be able to surmount. And a lot of times during COVID, young folks were at that place in life where they thought that, okay, their careers are done before they even started. Or even mid-career folks, we had people who'd done short service commissions in the Air Force, or had done substantial stuff, but had hit a midlife crisis. But they didn't think that that they have anything beyond what they've already done in their careers. And thanks to mentors like yourself and a lot of inspirational folks like we have in this room right now, that they were able to get different perspectives and just different knowledge conditions, which gave them hope, and which gave them not just hope, but some skills and tools and connections to be able to pull themselves back up. And I'm really proud to say that every other day I get a message about some sort of an achievement that one of our fellows have made. And a lot of times those news come from fellows who were absolutely despondent about the place where they are in the world. And I think talking to people, and just talking to people who are as different from you as possible, uh, gives that sort of a hope. But it starts from that irrational belief that, hey, I can do it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Desmond, for sharing your story. And thank you, Arpit, for sharing a little bit about your background and insights on this chapter, as well as the mindset of many of the fellows. Now I'd like to pivot into chapter 8, Command Central. Why the front row holds the keys to your launch, emphasizing the power of positioning in personal and professional spaces. Just as a spacecraft's launch trajectory is defined by its position on that launch pad and positioning as it launches, our success is shaped by where we choose to place ourselves physically, mentally, and strategically. Sitting in the front row is more than a symbolic choice. It's a deliberate statement of intent to be seen, engaged, and ready to lead. This mindset encourages proactiveness, visibility, and participation, offering a strategic advantage in every arena, from boardrooms to conferences to everyday interactions. By positioning ourselves at the forefront, we increase our visibility, fostering relationships with key decision makers, and create pathways for greater influence and opportunity. One of the change makers featured in this chapter is Linda. She's going to share her personal story and reveal how that front row mentality propelled her to lead with impact across industries and continents. Thank you, Linda, for sharing your story today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that amazing introduction to set the stage. Okay, I've learned a lot in my life, and I'm very often invited to speak about the lessons that I learned coming up through the trenches, because I'm from a generation where women did not have anyone to aspire to be, because you cannot be what you cannot see. There were practically no women leaders and when I grew up, and there were very few people that could show us the way or even set a standard that we can aspire to. For my parents, education was the key, and they kept telling us that education was very important. So they played a crucial role. But even then, my father's major ambition was that I would be an excellent secretary or a primary school teacher. I mean, that was about being a primary school teacher would have blown his ambitions sky high. I wanted a little more. And I was fortunate enough, and this ties into everything everyone has said before me. I was fortunate enough to have a teacher at secondary school, an Irish red-haired woman who believed that we can be whatever we want to be. And the first time that my father ever went to a school meeting and she told him off for not having enough ambition to what I could be, I thought, oh, someone is telling my father, the hero of our, she's telling him off. And he took it and he came home and he kind of took it on board. Maybe there might be something here. To watch another woman express her opinion, defend it, and drive my father into silence was an amazing eye-opener. As I grew up in a noble house where my parents worked downstairs, and my mother was the housekeeper, and my father was the maintenance person. And all I could see of this world that was amazing was through the unclosed door. I could see into the main house, and I could see the ballrooms, etc. And it didn't actually it didn't make me feel that I couldn't do it. It made me feel that's where I want to be. That's where I want to go. And just like Arpit said, it's something in you that's restless or that convinces you that you can do it. And I will, perhaps not to give away everything in my chapter, use 3 moments that really told us that you have to show up for your own life, that nobody is going to put a crown on your head, that you have to work for it, fight for it, do what you need to do so that you can do what you want to do. And that again is Desmond's story. You have to do what you need to do so you can do what you want to do. And the first one was when the lady of the house, who almost never even knew where the kitchen was, actually came down into the kitchen and asked and said to my mum that she wanted to speak to her. And to cut a long story short, she asked my mother if I could give private classes to her son who was failing at school. Now, my mother thought she had misunderstood. This was not possible in my mother's world, that the daughter of the housekeeper was going to teach the son of the lady because her daughter was better at school than the lady's son. This blew my mother's mind. It also showed me indirectly that anything is possible. I was going to teach this person who was going to go straight into Eton College, the most important college, and I would have to work my way through the whole thing. But, this is important. I didn't realize what it changed, but it changed something in my brain. When I graduated, I studied international relations. I did a master in diplomacy. And when I graduated, I had this ambition to go and work at the European Parliament. But when I was at school and when I graduated, it was the European Economic Community. And it was this place of many nationalities and a lot of political decisions that impacted and changed the world. And I wanted to be part of that. I didn't get accepted. And so I tried something else. I tried to get an internship at the palace because I loved communication. Events were communication. The Queen was probably the greatest statesman ever. And I applied. And what do you know? I got in. I got my internship. And my job was to set the table for global leader dinners, when the Queen hosted global leaders. Now, that is much more difficult than you think. Everything has to be measured. The knife has to be 4 centimeters from the plate. Everything has a meaning. The jewelry, the candlesticks, everything has a history. You can't put ones given by one leader when the other leader is at the table. It's all much more complicated, and it's all about protocol, and it's another way of communicating. It's about meaningful silent power. I learned about silent power, and I learned about soft power. But what I truly learned was this: Her Majesty the Queen never came near us, obviously, except on the days that she was receiving a global leader. We would set the table, stand back against the wall. She would walk into the room, go round the table, check everything, because she was a hands-on person. And once she arrived at the door, she would turn back and say, "Thank you for your service." The Queen saying thank you, gratitude from a leader. Again, we're going back to everything everyone has said before. This is the greatest attribute of a leader: gratitude, recognition of people who work and who achieve things for them and who actually enhance their power and sustain their leadership and sustain their power. She was my greatest inspiration, the servant leader, the leader who recognizes that she has to be grateful to the people, to the servants, to the people who served her. This was an amazing thing. I later on finally got into politics a little bit, as I interned for Margaret Thatcher as well. And I learned from her. She was probably the person I most disliked in my life, but also the person I most respected. You do not have to like someone to respect them. And so I learned a lot with her about communication, about studying before you open your mouth, about connecting your brain and thinking before you speak, about preparing the communication, preparing what you wear, how you stand, the message that you transmit, your body language, the words. Use 5 simple words instead of a big word so that you connect better with people. I learned all of this. I am profoundly and internally grateful to Mrs. Thatcher. I finally made my way to the European Parliament and got my wish and worked at the European Parliament, communicating press conferences, communicating bilateral meetings, being part of the construction of decisions that impact the world. And what I learned here, and this is where this front row expression that I truly believe in and that I use quite often. What I find with women, young women, it doesn't matter what age they are, they tend to sit towards the back or past the middle, quietly, discreetly. Women shouldn't be loud because they're considered it's not a nice thing. Women shouldn't have a voice because women shouldn't, when I'm called bossy, I say, thank you. It means I have leadership skills. Thank you. I don't mind being bossy. I'm a boss. So I have to be bossy. But it's really important that people understand that you have to use your voice. You have to communicate what you want, communicate what you aspire to, and you have to ask questions, and you have to be literally very interested in others, what they stand for, what they believe in, what their all of the structure of their culture and their beliefs will tell you how they will lead and how they will react and how they will be. If you don't understand that about them, you will not be able to negotiate with them or work with them or create meaningful relationships with them. So I always believe that I have to sit in the front row. And if it says reserved, I sit there anyway. Come and explain to me why I have to move. You have to really explain it to me. Nobody ever does. You have to stand up and ask a question. You have to use your voice. That's the only way you will be memorable, the only way you will be visible. I have to meet Andrea and ask her 80% more questions than I say things about myself. That's the only way I will understand Andrea. The same with Desmond. If I don't, I have two of these and one of these. If I don't listen to Desmond, if I don't sit at the front, if I don't lean in, if I don't listen and then repeat to show that I have understood, I am never going to connect with the other person. So I make sure that I follow my profound motto in life. Opportunity only dances with those who are already on the dance floor. So if you are not on the dance floor, if you don't put your hand up, if you don't express what it is that you want, as in my wish to go to the European Parliament, I kept trying and I got there. But on the way to trying, I bettered myself. I did something that would contribute to that. Then I did something else that would contribute to that. I kept rising parallel to my desire. And that is absolutely fundamental. Today, I work in 147 countries around the world. I work all across Africa, in Australia. I work in China. And I work based on all these lessons that I brought from that. Sit forward, listen to people, communicate with them, be present, go to a conference, don't leave the room without asking a question. When the speaker comes off stage, say thank you to him. Say, I agree with this you said, I didn't agree with this, and this is why I didn't agree, but I respect your idea. Make sure that every single thing that you participate is game day. Athletes prepare every day for game day. We have to go to work. We have to go to events. We have to go to life every day. That is the game day. When we step out of our house, it's game day. We have to always be the best version of ourselves. And that is fundamental. I don't care if I'm coming on Zoom or on Teams, or if there's COVID or no COVID, or if I'm going to an event, or if I'm flying. I'm wearing my lipstick. I'm looking the best I can look. And I'm open-eyed and curious to see who I will meet on the journey. Because whoever you meet on the journey, if you leave a positive memory with them, it will become another rung in the ladder to climbing. And I truly believe that sitting on the front row is not just about physicality. It is about being involved. It's about having a voice. It's about participating. And above all, it's about asking questions. I'm going to leave it there because I think I can go on always. I love this conversation. Thank you, Shelley.
Well, Linda, your story exemplifies the power of visibility and proactive engagement. But, what advice would you give to those who feel hesitant to step into the spotlight? Sometimes there's a perception that, leaders aren't in the spotlight or don't step into the spotlight. What are your thoughts on that?
Today, that is completely untrue. It could not be further from the truth. We all even look at companies today, and the leaders are the companies. A leader with a bad reputation, a leader who is not respected and admired, destroys the reputation of a company. Yes, a company is more than its leaders, but today leaders are the reputation of their company, and their visibility is important for the reputation of the company. We are all visible. We're all on social media. Thank God all my mistakes were made before social media. You can't blackmail me. But today we are all on social media. We're all visible. We have to be visible. It's important that we have opinions, that we get engaged with communities, and the young people kind of understand that. They don't all understand how to do it yet, but they kind of understand that. I think that more for women than men, exposure can be a nerve-wracking thing because we live in not only is it a cruel world, but it's a world where suddenly every idiot as well as every good person has the possibility to have an opinion, okay? And there is no filter. So of course, when you go online, you subject yourself to criticism. Look, I'm an expert in royal families. I get trolled and criticized and attacked all the time. She's a monarchist. She wants to overthrow republics, which is totally ridiculous. I just love history, but I get that every day. I tell all the people on my Facebook pages, my Instagram, I don't care. I'm on all the platforms. This is my platform. I rule this platform. So if you offend me, I won't feel it, but I'm going to delete you and I'm going to block you. This is a positive space. You can express your opinion, and it has to be a positive contributory opinion, or else you get blocked. And I do. Once a week, I eliminate hundreds of people, because for me, it's not about the numbers of followers. For me, it's about creating a positive space. And so what young people need to learn nowadays is that this space is their space. They don't have to be attacked, because you can just eliminate those people. And I refuse to let people who have nothing to be proud to show of their movement to criticize mine, because it's my road and my journey. And I'm sure they have their roads and their journeys. So what young people have to understand today is that exposure is not a bad thing. It depends what you expose. You have to be the master and the guardian of what you expose. But once people attack you, or exposure means criticism, okay? And I have to be prepared for it. But at the same time, it has rewards. When you stand up and you have an opinion, you impact people's lives. It might be one, or it might be many, but you are inspiring others and you are impacting others. And I'm a great believer in paying it forward. So when you learn a lesson, share it. Be a positive contributor and stand up and use your voice to set your example. You will be inspiring somebody. One person maybe, but you will be inspiring somebody.
Well, thank you, Linda, for sharing such compelling insights about the transformative power of the front row mindset and being in the spotlight. Your reflections on visibility and proactive engagement set the stage for us to hear another remarkable perspective from this chapter. Peter's journey reinforces the importance of strategic positioning and adaptability in leadership. Today, he'll share his journey and offer insights on how positioning yourself strategically can unlock opportunity and create lasting influence. Thank you, Peter. We look forward to your story.
Thank you, Shelley. And before I dive into my story, I just wanted to share two remarks about positioning and about being in a strategic location. I think there are two pillars that are very important when we discuss how to position ourselves, how to build our personal and professional path to be successful. And those two pillars are, as you mentioned, visibility, but also proactivity. And for me, visibility has to be very clearly defined, because we now are living in the times where we have both the good and the bad visibility. How do I define those? So the good visibility to me is something that we put outside that is real, our real achievements, our real work, our willingness to achieve something, everything that has real material value, but represent something that is related with our hard work, with who we are, with our character. And unfortunately, there is also a bad sense of visibility, which I called making impressions. And I don't mean making good impression when we meet people. I mean the culture of constantly flooding our people's life with impressions of our life, how we spend vacation, what we ate, what we did today, and that leaves some kind of a false picture of who we are. And unfortunately, technology doesn't serve this purpose very well, because it actually incentivizes people to share this kind of a imposter life syndrome with others. So I just want to distinguish this, because if you want to achieve success in life, you really have to understand that visibility doesn't mean just making impressions about who you want to be or with whom you've met. It's actually something much deeper. It's about your character. It's about your hard work. It's about what you put out there an extra effort, when you go extra mile, when you serve other people. So what in order to be set on a proper journey, you have to take care of. It is you have to take care of your tools, your body, your mind, your spirit. And that leads me to another pillar, which is being proactive, because with all those tools that you invest in, you also have to have certain attitude, which is an attitude of listening, of predicting what is happening, what is coming up next, and putting your best skills to a great job that you're going to be doing. So I think it's like with Linda's, Arpit's, Desmond's, and Andrea's cases, your personal and professional path is an iterative process. You have to understand that, because one comes from something else. So unless you are a king or a queen, you are born into a position, you can just go to a top role and just manage other people or lead a great organization, unless you build your curriculum one step at a time. So you need to be patient, you need to be understanding, you have to be compassionate. So how did it work in my case? I think in my journey, visibility has been really about ensuring I was present in those places where decisions were made. And from my early academic times, I tried to understand, since I was coming from a country that there is a lot of competition, right? You come up to really get into the position in a very tight job market. You have to be the best. So people employ different strategies. My strategy was, okay, what is not yet there that will be coming to this market, and what I should be studying to be on top of everyone else. And then on that time, it was the internet, it was the telecommunications. So my focus was fully centered around, in my law school, around the telecommunication law, about the new technologies, the internet, how they are regulated, and how they are, what they actually do, what is the impact, like how do they change society. So I had all of those big questions that no one can answer, and I would go to different classes with different professors, asking those questions, and then trying to dive deep as I could. And although I did not end up working in telecommunication nor high-tech industry, I actually ended up working in the financial sector. But I found an internship that was at the section of new financial technology. So it was kind of relevant, although it was not fully relevant. So I had to upskill myself on the financial sector side, and then use all this technology knowledge to understand how technology shapes the financial sector. And it was a great journey. So I started as an intern, and then I really carved out my path going up the ladder chain. And I would just want to say that I was extremely proactive when I was doing this. And I highly encourage anyone to be proactive. Don't be passive. Don't be just, taker. Don't be just a person who absorbs or passively absorbs knowledge. Just try to understand, be really passionate about what you're doing, because that's the recipe for success. So I would embark on every kind of activity in my professional life. I would take the new projects. I would go and do some charity action for the bank foundation. And just during one of those activities with the bank's foundation, I was spotted by the CEO of the bank. And then he offered me to be his assistant. And that was like the first breakthrough. All of a sudden, from being an intern in a godforsaken department, I started to be in the rooms where decisions are being made. So that set me on a course to like very high pace and work, but also a course where I could progress very fast through the ladder chain within the financial sector. And one thing that really happened during this course is I realized, well, I'm actually set for life. I can stay in the financial sector. I can do whatever I do. I do a great job. I progressed through the ranks, became a manager at a very young age, and I didn't have to do anything more. But then that was not enough for me. So I said, okay, visibility also means taking risks. And my big dream at a certain moment was to move to the United States, because this is where the big decisions are being made. This is where the economy is centered around. This is where you see all of this technological change happening in real time. And when you travel someplace else, you just see the effects of those decisions that are made in the United States. So I saved all my money, I moved, and I embarked on this new journey, and I started from zero. I didn't know anyone, I didn't know anything. I just started my university program, and I just hope that, I'm gonna just start. I'm gonna do the best in my computer science engineering program, and I'm gonna try to get myself to work in one of the sectors. Little did I know that it's not that easy when you are a student to just start working in the United States. But that doesn't prevent me to start meeting people, asking them, and looking around. And that's how I found my first job as an advisor, like 5 levels down from what I was doing in Poland at the International Monetary Fund. Being an advisor was a tedious job. I had to once again upskill myself, learn everything about macroeconomics, about economic policies, about how efficiently and how proactively think and forecast the economic conditions of different countries. And once again, I employed all of the previous skills and all of the previous attitudes to this role, and I just moved through. I then became an alternate executive director, then executive director. I was representing at the peak of my career at the IMF 9 countries from different parts of the world, and helping them to navigate this very complex and very difficult environment where all the macroeconomic, politics, technology, they all come to play, and one has to make decisions. One has to chart prospects for those countries to grow, to be sustainable, to allow their own societies to be wealthy and prosper. And then after spending 7 years at the IMF, I moved out of the International Monetary Fund because I felt I did everything I could. Could I stay? Of course, but I didn't want to. I wanted to move to my first love, which was technology. And then to do that, I once again had to pivot and regain skills, relearn certain areas of my skill set. But that move was already based on the investment I made when I was younger. All of this investment in computer science degrees, all of this investment in understanding the policy, macroeconomics. So for 2 years, I was bridging my pivot with advisory job that I was providing to different clients all around the world. And at the same time, I was looking for a perfect fit. And I found one. Quite recently, I moved to one of those top 4 tech companies. I'm not going to be mentioning name, but I am now working there, and I'm employing all of my previous skills in the service of this company, being finally in the place where I wanted to be when I was a student. I will stop here. I could, of course, talk for a couple of more minutes, but back to you, Shelley.
Oh, Peter, your story emphasizes the importance of strategic positioning and being at the forefront of innovation. What lessons can emerging leaders take from your experience in positioning themselves for success?
Yeah, I think the key lesson is have courage, self-belief in yourself, and never give up, because life never ends in the moment you are in. It never ends. It's like when you watch Finding Nemo. There is this fish called Dory, and she always repeats, "Just keep swimming, just keep swimming." So we know when you have all of those difficult situations in life, just keep swimming. No means just next one. And that's a very important skill to learn if you want to get to a place where you are aspiring to get. There are no barriers. There is no one saying there is a law that prohibits you to get there. So if there is no law that prohibits you to get there, that means anything is possible, right? So just have this kind of a very open, very upfront attitude. And I have to tell you something that I rarely share. I was an extremely shy boy in my elementary school. It was to the extent that when we had a play and I had a role to play in the school theater, I was so stressed to get on the stage that I stayed behind the stage. They were waiting 5 minutes for me to get to the stage. Okay, so just having at certain moment in my life, I decided I cannot be like this. And I started to challenge myself. So this attitude of challenging yourself, to putting challenges just for the sake of overcoming them, this is also an amazing ingredient leaders should have, because in life, no one will challenge you as much as you can challenge yourself. So challenge yourself hard, put yourself in difficult tasks, because that's going to serve you very well. And as long as you are young, whatever you invest in, like all of those challenges you try to put for yourself when you're young, they create habits, and habits create your character. And then after you hit 40, 45, you are just an effect of all of those investments you made when you were 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years old. Once you hit 40, 50 years old, if you didn't invest in this kind of mindset of being flexible, trying everything, trying new things, being on top of everything, trying to predict what's coming next, it's going to be very hard to be responsive. And we are living in extremely challenging times. We are living in times where maybe technology can replace half of the labor market. We are living in times where the fact that you are the expert in a certain area doesn't guarantee you are going to always be working in this field. In this environment, being flexible, being open, and as many others of my predecessors said, having this ability to create lasting relationship is very powerful, very important, and you're not going to go wrong if you choose this path.
Well, thank you, Peter, for sharing such powerful insights. Both you and Linda's stories exemplify how embracing a front row mentality can lead to transformative opportunities and impactful leadership. Andrea, how do you see the concepts of strategic positioning and proactive engagement evolving in the future of leadership?
I'm still processing everything everybody says. It's a lot of to take in, and some amazing comments. And um, I think I wanted to put a little bit of curveball, Shelley, if you allow me to, into it, because I think that as we sit here, all six of us, I look at us, we are like United Nations. Everybody's from a different country with a different background and different religion and different colors. And I think that we are already so much into the topic being successful and I mean, nobody's perfect, right? But being on a great journey ourselves, that I think one topic maybe which would be worthwhile to touch on is our cultures. I think Peter touched on it a little bit, where we come from. Eastern Europe was, everything was half full, talk on, don't trust anybody. I lived in Africa in 9 years. My kids are half South African, half Czech. My husband is Indian, South African. So there's a multiple mix. And I think one of the areas which we should also encourage the audience to think is don't discourage, but often leave your culture prejudices behind. Because, for example, people in Africa are super respectful. They would never go over and above. Indian, very similar, right? If there is somebody senior, you would not, culturally, not really challenge them, very little. If you go in America, everybody's very loud and they just, and nobody even blinks twice if, a junior guy would talk to a senior guy. And I think that culturally, many people come from a background where we have these boundaries. And I think that one of the areas to build on what Piotr and Linda and Desmond and Arpit were saying is always look at yourself while you're curious and ambitious and flexible and always ready to learn at any age, is ask yourself, what culture barriers do I have? And are these cultural barriers stopping me in a room full of people who maybe don't have them and they have maybe others? Because I think that's really something. When I lived in Africa, I managed Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania, Botswana, and Mozambique. And one very great colleague of mine, his name is Josie Banda. He was a managing director of Mozambique. And he always said to me, after a couple of years, he said, Andrea, in the beginning, I didn't like you at all. You were so aggressive, you were so loud, you didn't listen, because I was Eastern European and I had, yeah, in his eyes, I was so disrespectful. In my eyes, I was just doing my job. And I think that's really that's the balance in which makes the difference between a really great leader and a leader with great skills, where you are not only technically have a lot of empathy, but you are also able to balance these cultural elements. And I think in the situation which Piotr was describing, then, with melting pot of cultures and where skills are being replaced as we speak, yeah, like pop-ups, we need to be able to manage multiple different cultures at the same time. So that I think is another point which I would add to all of these points which were discussed is be aware where you're coming culturally and don't make it stop yourself to become a great leader. Because just because everybody tells you that this is how your culture operates, it might be still okay if I would still live in Czech Republic, but the moment I come out of it, I die because I'm on the global scene. I cannot operate like I operate in my hometown, and I think that's a really important skills, which cultivates great leaders and where you can position yourself really strategically in these big organizations that you are able to manage people from different backgrounds, from different cultures, from different races, from different religion, and then that's I think a superpower.
Thank you, Andrea. Wow, what a truly inspiring journey we've been on today. We've heard stories of courage, resilience, and bold leadership from extraordinary change makers. I want to take a moment to thank each of our speakers, Andrea, Arpit, Desmond, Linda, and Peter, for your authenticity, vulnerability, and wisdom. Your stories are a powerful reminder that growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. It happens when we rise to the challenge, even when the path ahead is unclear. Before we close, I'd like to reflect on a few key takeaways from today's conversations. The power of relationships. We learned from Andrea and Arpit that meaningful connections aren't just nice to haves. They're essential for growth. Invest in relationships that challenge you, support you, and open doors of opportunities. Silence those self-doubts. Desmond reminded us to never disqualify ourselves from something we haven't been offered. Bold action requires self-belief. Sometimes the most courageous step is to simply say yes to something new and step into the front row. Peter and Linda's stories showed us that success belongs to those who position themselves at the forefront. Don't wait for permission. Be visible, be present, and claim your space in every room you enter. These aren't just key takeaways, they're calls to action. As you reflect on today's events, consider which lesson resonates most with you. Ask yourself, what small action can I take today to live out this lesson? Maybe it's sending a message to a mentor, asking for that opportunity you've been hesitating on, or stepping forward in a meeting when you'd normally sit back. Growth starts with action. If you haven't already, I invite you to get your copy of What Space Got to Do with It? 10 Life Lessons for Personal Growth. It's more than a book. It's a masterclass for bold leadership, packed with the stories and strategies you've heard today and so much more. You can get your copy on Amazon, and I encourage you to explore it, highlight it, and come back to it whenever you need a spark of inspiration. But don't just read it. Live it. Take the lessons from today and put them into practice. Your next breakthrough might be closer than you think. And it starts with taking one small step, bold step outside your comfort zone. This is just the beginning of our journey together. I'd love for you to stay connected. Share your biggest takeaway from today's event on social media using hashtag What's Space Got to Do with It? Tell us what action you're going to take after today's session, and I'll be watching and cheering you on. Follow me on social media, and let's keep this momentum going. Thank you for being part of this incredible experience. Your growth is your greatest investment, and I'm honored to have been part of this step in your journey. Until next time, I'm Shelley Brunswick, and I look forward to seeing you around the galaxy.